Good morning, McGraw. How are you?
We're great. Thanks for checking in as you do every Tuesday and Thursday. I was a bit shocked and surprised over this police officer that was charged. I didn't know that was on the radar screen much, and all of a sudden that's sort of big news, isn't it?
It's a big story, and I didn't know either that the former St. Louis officer named Jason Stockley, and charged in the death of Anthony Lamar Smith. It was a shooting back in 2011 after a chase. And what happened in this case, and it's really weird, great story this morning in the Post-Dispatch by Christine Byers. There was a wrongful death settlement in this case a couple of years ago in which the police department paid out about $900,000 to the child of the victim who was shot. And yet everything was sealed by the court. And so none of this information has been available to the public. You wonder why the press regularly gets frothing at the mouth about open records laws and secrecy in government. This is it right here. This is the kind of thing that goes on where government officials try to hide information from the public. In the meantime, apparently an investigation was at least somewhat ongoing. That's where I think the big question comes. The activists believe, from what I can tell, that they really sort of forced the prosecutor, Jennifer Joyce, to reopen this case and get into it. The Justice Department isn't saying much, but they've apparently been investigating for some period of time, too. So, it may just be one of these very complicated cases that takes a long time. It's hard to prosecute cops, but the timing here is just so interesting, and the details, it brings back everything from Ferguson. It brings back what a lot of protesters were saying, that there are some bad cops out there that in certain situations have targeted African Americans, and this is apparently one of those cases. Obviously, the former cop who lives in Houston now will have his day in court.
The U.S. attorney has declined to prosecute, and we should also say that this happened under Dan Isom's watch when he was police chief, and I guess he sort of, I don't want to say covered up, but sort of wasn't, what do we say about Dan Isom, that it was under his regime in which this happened?
Yeah, I don't know. Part of it was because it was still under the state board that used to, control the police department. It wasn't under city control at the time. But clearly you have to raise questions and go back and look at how the police department investigated it at the time, how the prosecutor's office, if they presented a case, dealt with it. They're saying now they weren't officially presented a case. What went on during the Department of Justice or U.S. Attorney's review? Is it, one of these cases where they just didn't take it seriously enough? Or is it one of those cases where the evidence wasn't there yet? And, one of the interesting turns in this case is that when Sam Dotson became police chief, he ordered a forensic review of the audio and the video. And that's apparently where some enhanced audio and video made it clear that the ex-cop allegedly said during the chase, "I'm going to go get this," and then a bunch of expletives, as in he's going to kill this guy. And that's what happened.
Yeah, no, it's a pretty interesting story, one in which the protesters were not sort of, protesting. So the one police shooting nobody was really talking about is the one police shooting in which charges come about.
Yeah, it's one that was, way under the radar, and I think, some folks knew about it, but it was under the radar in part because it had been, there had been a civil settlement, and
Right.
And it was confidential, and nobody knew any of the details.
Tony Messenger, great job as always. Thanks for checking in. Be safe. We'll talk to you on Tuesday.
Good to talk to you, McGraw. Bye, Kelly.
You got it.